Hello, everyone. Welcome back to episode 4 of the TriStar Sports Show. Jamie and I are back here again, and today we have a really exciting one. The NFL is back.
It
It's
is.
officially week 1. We get a little taste of everything starting on Thursday night. We're recording this on Tuesday night, so we won't know the outcome of the Chiefs Ravens game, despite this episode being posted after it. But we're gonna give a little preview for that, and we're gonna keep track of who's winning each game, make it a little competition of between Jamie and I, who's gonna have the most picks.
All right, well, I'm ready when you are if you want to go ahead and dive into the Ravens Chiefs game.
Yeah, so if you want to just share your screen with I know you have the
Perfect.
slate of games pulled up here.
Yeah. All righty.
And are you keeping track of the scores?
Yep. I got it
Perfect,
all
because
written down. All
the
right,
people
week
gotta
one.
know.
They do. We're going to have to go back over this the next week.
All right, so Thursday night we got Ravens Chiefs. So reigning Super Bowl champs Chiefs versus the Baltimore Ravens. We got Lamar versus Patty Mahomes. What are you thinking?
Um, Call me an idiot, and by the time this episode comes out, I might look like an idiot. But they played each other pretty darn close in the AFC. I believe it was the AFC Championship game. Yeah, AFC Championship game. Um, Pretty close game. Reigning MVP Lamar Jackson, um, along with a stud of a running back coming into town named Derrick Henry. Sorry if that's still a sore spot for you, Tegan.
Yeah, no
But
comment.
just based off of seeing how the Chiefs kind of played the season last year, with them, they started a little bit slow. Maybe don't utilize Travis Kelce as much in the regular season just to make sure that he's in tip top shape for the postseason. I know it's at Kansas City, but I think I'm going to go with Baltimore here. I think uh, Lamar and Derrick Henry can show off that new and improved. Already was probably the best running game, at least in the AFC. Uh, I think they can go in there and get a win. And I know that you might be thinking something different.
Oh, I most definitely am. I've made mistakes in the past trying to convince myself that Patrick Mahomes is human. He's not. He has 3 Super Bowls in his back pocket. I hate the Chiefs more than anyone.
Mm,
He's ruined my Titans seasons multiple occasions. Um, but I just have a really hard time believing that the Chiefs lose Week 1. I'm sure they're going to be celebrating their banner celebration or whatnot there. Um, I wouldn't be surprised if we see Taylor Swift a ton on the TV, as you have to nowadays with the Chiefs games. Which, no hate to the Swifties, they're a large fan base. Um, but yeah, mark me down. I think the Chiefs win this thing. They typically don't start the season as well as they finish. So I mean, you could be right. The Ravens could go in there probably more motivated than the Chiefs are. But I just think crunch time. I'm trusting Patrick Mahomes with the ball instead of Lamar Jackson. I mean, I think Lamar's a great player, but no diss to him. But give me a Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs.
Sounds good. So I got Ravens, you got Chiefs. We'll have to see. Going into Friday, which this episode should be out before um, that game happens. Should be out Friday morning. I think is that what we're targeting. All right.
That's the goal.
Oh, and real quick, in case you're listening instead of watching or anything, and you can't see what we're wearing right now. Tegan's a Tennessee Titans fan, and I'm a San Francisco 49ers fan. So whenever you say that you don't know if anyone else hates the Chiefs more than you, that was a little sore spot for me, just because they've two of those 3 Super Bowls that Mahomes has are coming from beating my team in the Super Bowl. So we'll have to
Yeah,
see about that.
that did not even cross my mind, to be honest with you.
But going into Friday, we got Packers in Philadelphia. Packers versus Eagles. You want to kick this one off? I'm interested to see what you say about this one.
Yeah, so this game is in Brazil, and
Yes.
what's funny about that is I know they were talking about the offseason where it's like illegal in Brazil to wear the color green. It's like some weird, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't a joke. I think it was a real thing. And for whatever reason, the NFL decided to take the two green teams and put them on a field, which I think is very, very ironic. Um, this is a very interesting game, and I'm having a hard time kind of picking because you have the Eagles with Jalen Hurts, and we know who they have, AJ Brown, that guy, and Devontae Smith, and multiple other weapons, but they did lose, their heart and soul at the center position of Jason Kelsey. The tush push will be a little bit different looking without Kelsey up there. But
Yeah.
then you also have the Packers, and the Packers got Jordan Love, who I think Jordan Love is probably one of the better underrated quarterbacks in this league. That's at least on the younger side of things. I wouldn't call him elite yet, but he's definitely on the top half of the league. I would say, or getting close to it. I'm gonna probably say the Eagles pulled this game out.
Okay. I was gonna agree, or I was gonna say the Eagles as well. Whenever I thought it was in Philadelphia, but with it being in uh, Brazil, I don't know. I think this one's going to be a close one because typically they say in foreign environments that the better run game will win. Uh, but I mean, Eagles probably have the better run game here with a newly added Saquon Barkley and what you already have in Jalen Hurts. But the Packers also have they just went out and got Josh Jacobs. So I don't know. My heart wants to go Packers, but I think I'm gonna distastefully agree and say that the Eagles are gonna win this game. As much as I hate them as well, I think the Eagles probably have this one.
Hey,
Uh,
don't discredit the Philadelphia fans. They travel, and they're honestly a big enough. I guess the Packers are too. They're both big franchises where I wouldn't be surprised if there's pretty large fan bases of both of them in Brazil.
I think that one. By the time this episode comes out, I definitely could have flipped my pick for this one 4 different times. But what I have on the paper in pen, so I can't change it, is Eagles. So we agree on this one.
I mean, yeah, it kind of just depends on what Jalen Hurts shows up. To be honest,
Right, exactly. What Jalen Hurts shows up without Travis Kelsey?
Jason Kelsey,
Jason Kelsey.
Kelsey.
Sorry.
They're so similar. It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah. So next game on the slate. Now we're kicking off into Monday. Whenever I'm sure all of us will have our quad screens or red zone, whatever you may have up on the TV. We got first game on the list here is Panthers Saints. Real barn burner with this one. um, I'm probably gonna have to go with the Saints, just because the Panthers were the worst team in the league last year, and I don't know if Xavier Legette is going to make that big of a difference. Maybe
that
Bryce
voice,
Young.
that voice is pretty awesome.
Yeah, his voice is awesome. It's fun to listen to. But, maybe Bryce Young takes a big step forward from year 1 to year 2. Big NFC South matchup. So it does matter for both teams. But I just think with Alvin Kamara, Derek Carr, Chris Olave, Taysom Hill if you want to throw him in there. I think the Saints are the better team at home. I think they got this one.
Yeah. This is kind of crazy to think about how this game about 6 years ago would have way more to talk about. Just it's kind of crazy the way these teams have fallen off. We got a division matchup to start the year, and normally they're pretty close games. I think Saints being at home gives them probably the edge, but I'm kind of curious to see where does Bryce Young go from here. He had a very disappointing rookie season, as you mentioned. With that, he could improve drastically, or he could be much of the same. He has about as zero help as you can have around him as any young quarterback does in this league. So
Yeah.
I'm probably going to have to agree and say the Saints are going to win this. I think they just got too much talent compared to the Panthers. So I think we're gonna have to agree on that one.
Sounds good. You want to kick off the next game?
Yeah. So this one also is kind of interesting. Um, this game would have probably been on more people's radars without injury. Vikings lost their who could have been their starter, which most people thought JJ McCarthy would be their starting quarterback. They drafted him, and unfortunately, he tore his ACL. Giants got Danny Dimes still. They picked up a good receiver in Malik Neighbors, who I have on my fantasy team. So shout out to him. I think he's going to be very talented. They have a former Tennessee Vol in Jalen Hyatt, who is looking to get more targets this year. They lost Saquon though, and that's a big hit. I think this is going to be a close game. I want to say Giants, but part of me believes somehow, some way, Sam Darnold and the Vikings are going to figure out a way to win this thing. I think they're going to feed the ball to
Aaron
Justin
Jones.
Jefferson,
Oh, okay.
and I think they'll find a way. I'm going to have to go with the Vikings. It might be a hot take. It probably is not the betting favorite, and it's probably not going to happen, but I think it might happen, so we're going to go with it.
You know, I'm going to agree with you here, just because I don't think the Giants are a good football team. I'm going to come out and say it. I don't think Danny Dimes is a good quarterback. I think Malik Neighbors is a hell of a receiver. And I would like to be able to come in here and sit down one day and say that Jalen Hyatt is a hell of an NFL receiver, because we all know what he was in college. Um, they went out and signed Brian Burns as their premier free agency pickup. I mean, it should help, but I don't know if it'll be a huge difference maker. I know they have your old DC now as their defensive coordinator, so we'll see how he does. But yeah, other than that, I mean, they got Singletary to try and fill a Saquon-sized hole, which he won't do, and also he's not going to get many opportunities to get the ball, because maybe not in this game, but in most games they're going to be down so much so fast that I don't think that Singletary's going to get the ball much or get a chance to get the ball much. So I'm going to go with Vikings too. I think Sam Darnold is a fine backup. I think he can come in and kind of do something similar to what Josh Dobbs did last year, especially with a healthy Justin Jefferson this year. I think the Vikings will get it done.
I mean, yeah, I don't think it's probably the popular pick from those people. I mean, on paper, you would really, if the Giants are playing correctly, they should win this game. They just have a knack, what it seems like, to not play correctly in times where they're supposed to. So,
All right, so the next game we got Patriots Bengals. This one's an interesting one for me. My pick isn't really that interesting. I'm going to go with the Bengals to win at home. But I'm interested to see how Joe Burrow comes off of this wrist injury that he had last year, because a wrist injury on the throwing hand of a quarterback can sometimes be troublesome. I don't know if we've seen it too much, but I have my questions about how he's going to return from this. He could be just fine. He could also never be the same. So who knows what's going to happen? I know they lost their starting running back in Joe Mixon. They picked up Zach Moss, but also many people think that Chase Brown could end up stealing a lot of carries from him. On the Patriots side of things, new quarterback, even though that quarterback's not going to be the starter. They named Brissett as the starter, and they lost Matthew Judon. So I don't know. I don't think the Patriots are that good either. I'm going to take the Bengals.
yeah, this is probably way too easy of a pick. I think the Patriots are probably going to be the dumpster fire of the NFL this season. Well, at least as long as they decide to keep playing Jacoby Brissett. The Patriots have done that song and dance before with him. Um, he was a great NFL backup. He is not meant to be a starter in the NFL. Which, now that I say this, clip it, because he's probably going to throw for 300 yards and beat the Bengals. But no, I think Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, no longer Joe Mixon, but the rest of the boys, I think they're going to have that figured out. The Titans took their offensive coordinator, so we'll see how things translate there. But I think the obvious pick is the Cincinnati Bengals. I mean, I'm unless they decide to put Drake May in and he comes in and balls out, I don't see this going any other way.
Or Joe Milton.
Or Joe Milton. And hey, best third string in the NFL. Mark my words.
Yeah, there you go.
So then that leads us to the next game. We got Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Atlanta Falcons. This is honestly more of a coin flip than I thought it would be. The Steelers picked up 2 quarterbacks this offseason, which caught definitely me by surprise. They picked up Justin Fields after they traded for Justin Fields after they signed Russell Wilson. Is that how it went
I
down?
believe so.
And which to me made 0 sense. I think they're both very capable quarterbacks. I just don't understand if you were going to trade for Justin Fields and begin with, why'd you go out and pay Russell Wilson is the way I see it.
Right.
I would have just traded for Justin Fields and kept it just because of the youth. I mean, Russell Wilson's on the back end of his career if he's not already close to retiring anyways. They kind of just gave him a payday because I think they panicked and didn't have a quarterback. But I know he's named starting quarterback going into week 1. The Falcons have some new faces over there with Kirk Cousins. He got a payday over there. They have a new coaching staff. Is that correct?
I know they have a new head coach because it's not Arthur Smith anymore. It slips my
Okay.
mind who it is, though.
Which is Arthur Smith a part of the Steelers?
Yeah, he's the offensive coordinator of the Steelers now.
So see what happens there. They're facing each other for the first game.
Yeah.
Um,
Falcons also picked
I mean-
up 2 quarterbacks, if you think about it.
yeah, I mean, they did pretty much the same thing except for in the draft. They went and got Michael Penix Jr. from Washington in the first round,
Yeah.
and which made no sense because they gave Kirk Cousins big time NFL money and for multiple years. And so I don't know. This is in Atlanta. I mean, it's not necessarily a super home field advantage, but this is a really tough one, Jamie.
I know.
And I kind of want to pick different than you just because this is a coin flip, and I don't want us to pick the same one so I can have a better record than you.
We have picked the same one since the very first game.
So I'm gonna go Falcons, hoping that you go Steelers.
You'd be correct.
Was it- Okay, good.
So you go Falcons. I'm going to go Steelers. I'm going to tell you why. Arthur Smith is not a good head coach. He showed that when he was with Atlanta. He tried to get too cute, tried to use his star players like Kyle Pitts, Drake London, and Bijan Robinson as decoys for his backups. That didn't work. But what he is good at, or what his resume says he's good at, is being an offensive coordinator. I don't think, obviously, Najee Harris is not what he had in Derrick Henry when he was with Tennessee, but I think that Najee Harris is a fine running back and maybe shares similar traits, albeit more of a Walmart brand to Derrick Henry, just with the big bruising style that he runs with. And even if Arthur Smith does want to incorporate some of the backups, I think that Jaylen Warren may be the better running back on the team. He's definitely more versatile. Other than that, regardless of who they start at quarterback, I would start Justin Fields because of his ability to extend plays with his legs and just him being younger. If you're not going to be a very good team, I would rather get the younger guy more experience. But, I mean, I think that Pickens is a fine wide receiver who may get too much hype at times, but it's still a fine wide receiver. And I think this game's going to come down to the defenses. And just maybe for the sake of picking opposite of you, I'm going to take the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Those are all fair points. Just looking at the next game, you can handle that disgusting AFC South game. I'm not.
I mean, hey, I think this game probably won't be, but maybe a little closer than a lot of people think it'll be. Just because One, it's in Indianapolis. I know that, I mean, home field advantage isn't, I don't think, is nearly as big of a factor as it is in like college football, but it is a factor still. There are a lot of mouths to feed in Houston now between Tank Dell, Nico Collins, who just got paid, um, Stephon Diggs, who they just brought in, Joe Mixon, Dalton Schultz. I mean, you can look at it one of two ways. You can say that they're loaded and they can pretty much throw the ball to a different player every play, or you can also say there's a lot of mouths to feed, and sometimes those don't turn out like you say it's going to. That being said, though, I'm still going to take the Texans, and that reasoning is just because we don't know what we have in Anthony Richardson yet for Indianapolis. He could be Cam Newton on paper if he stays healthy. Um, he could also be, I don't know what the furthest thing from that is, someone who continuously gets hurt and can't ever stay on the field. But
RG3.
yeah, he could also be RG3. Hopefully they'll do better than last year with a healthy, happy Jonathan Taylor. Um, I think they picked up Adonai Mitchell in the draft, who could help the receiving core. But other than that, I mean, Texans are the better team. I love D'Amico Ryans just because of his affiliation with the 49ers. So I'm going to take Texans. I'm not going to overthink it, even though I do think that the Colts have some potential this year.
Yeah, you did a good job breaking down both teams. As a Titans fan, I hope and pray this is the tie. I couldn't care less who wins this game. I guess it would honestly probably favor us if the Colts won, just because the Texans are quote unquote bigger threat to the division. Um, I think the obvious pick is probably the Houston Texans, and I'm going to go with them. I mean, I'm really hoping they have a second year Stroud flop. I really do. We've seen it with quarterbacks before. I think he has too good of a team to probably do that. But I am going to have to go with the Houston Texans on this one.
Sounds good. So right now, I guess we're coming up about halfway through. Um, we only have two different picks. So I think it'll get a little bit more uh, diverse as we continue to go down here. I can look at a couple games where I think we might disagree on, but even if we have some similar picks this week, I think as the weeks go on, we'll develop our own opinions and continue to diversify what each of us thinks going to happen. So I'll let you take the next game.
Yeah, so then we got the Arizona Cardinals at the Buffalo Bills. Bills have obviously Josh Allen coming back. They did lose most of their offensive weapons with Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs leaving. However, they did draft someone who's I've been high on for the last few years in his college career is Keon Coleman. I think he's going to be an excellent receiver. And then on the Cardinal side of things, they got Kyler Murray back. I think he's fully healthy and ready to go. They have Trey McBride at tight end. They had probably, which I know you've been high on, is Marvin Harrison Jr. for a while.
Yeah.
He's arguably probably the best player coming out of his draft, at least just pure talent. I mean, you obviously Caleb Williams, which we'll get to in a minute. I think the Cardinals might have sneaky one of the most explosive offenses this year, without people realizing it. I think the Bills might struggle out the gate just to kind of figure out who's going to step up, if Keon Coleman, your rookie, is going to be that guy or not. I believe is Shakir still there?
Yeah, Shakir is still there.
Okay.
They drafted Frank Gore Jr. Who knows?
Dawson Knox is still their tight end.
Him and Kincaid.
And Kincaid, yeah. Obviously, I mean, Kincaid's a great football player. I forgot about him. I think most people in America would probably sit here and choose the Bills, but I think I might choose the Cardinals for a little upset for week one.
It's not a bad pick at all.
I really think Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to get going right out the gate.
Yeah, as much as I don't want to sit here and pick an NFC West rival, I think I'm going to have to agree with you just because, one, it's still too early in the year for playing in New York to be a factor against a team from Arizona. If they were playing in November, I would say probably Bills win this game 10 times out of 10 just because a team from Arizona probably doesn't typically fare well in Buffalo at that time of year. But right now, that's not a big factor. Um, as you hinted at, I'm super high on Marvin Harrison Jr. I thought he was far and away the best player in this draft class. Caleb Williams might make me eat my words the more I watch him. Um, also, I mean, Bill's receiving core is a mess right now. We'll see if anyone can emerge as the number one, but right now it looks like Kincaid is probably their number one. Uh, Other than that, I mean, yeah, I'm really high on McBride. I'm really high on Marvin Harrison Jr. I hate that both of them play for a division rival who may actually pose a threat this year. So I'm going to take the Cardinals too.
I was not expecting you to say that. I'm not going to lie.
I don't know.
Hey,
I don't know if you'll be
if we
expecting
if
me to
we're
say what's up.
if we're green on a bunch of stuff and we're right, then just great minds think alike. If we're
Exactly.
wrong, then we got to get back to the drawing board.
We do. But this is a game I don't think we're going to be picking the same on because I mentioned earlier I'm pretty high on Caleb Williams. The more, maybe it's the hard knocks speaking to me, but the more I watch him, whether it was in the preseason or on Hard Knocks, I mean, he he looks like he has that it factor that you don't see too often with quarterbacks. They also, I mean, they went out and did something they never did for Justin Fields, which is put weapons around him. They went and got Keenan Allen. They paid DJ Moore. They drafted Rome Odunze. And they went and got a solid running back in DeAndre Swift. So, I mean, they're going
Don't
to be a
forget
good
Cole
team.
Kmet.
Yeah, they still have Cole Kmet, who's a probably plus tight end in the league, probably in that upper echelon. I'm not going to hit on the Titans too much because I'm sure you want to, but I am high on the Titans. Don't get me wrong. Um, I like Will Levis. I like Calvin Ridley. I like Tony Pollard. I really like your coaching hires and your defensive signings, especially. But I think this will probably be a big Caleb Williams is here to stay game, if you ask me. But I'll let you talk about your Titans
Yeah,
now.
I'm gonna have to respectfully disagree with my full heart. The Titans this year, I don't. I mean, obviously, I'm a Titans fan, so I believe in the delusion. Okay. However, I don't understand the disrespect. We are, I think, predicted over under 5.5 wins. I don't understand where that number is coming from. If we had the same roster from last year, then sure, I would totally get it. However, Ryan Tannehill is gone. This is fully the Will Levis show. As you mentioned, we picked up Calvin Ridley. We still have DeAndre Hopkins. We picked up Tony Pollard. We have Tajay Spears. We still have Chig at tight end. And our biggest issue was the offensive line, which we addressed. We really did. We picked up Cushenberry to be our center and from the Broncos. And then we drafted J.C. Latham to be our left tackle. And we saw last year towards the end of the season when Will Levis had time to throw the ball, he threw it very, very well. And I think we're going to protect him a lot better this year with the more dynamic offense. Defensive side, I mean, you still got big Jeffrey Simmons on the front end. You picked up a good D tackle from Texas to kind of pair with him. You still have Harold Landry on the edge, Arden Key. You picked up Kenneth Murray from the Chargers. We just picked up another linebacker. And then you got Awuzie from the Bengals. And another guy from the Bengals I forgot to mention was Tyler Boyd on the offensive side. Callahan coming from the Bengals kind of took a couple of his guys. And then you have L'Jarius Sneed at the other corner. You got McCreary. I mean, I think we're loaded. I mean, I understand why someone wouldn't be like they're Super Bowl favorites or anything like that. but I really don't think it's that crazy to say we're going to be competing in our division. I mean, there's a lot of young talent in our division. I fully understand that. But I think competing for the division / a wild card spot is a very realistic expectations with this roster. Um, so I personally think we're going to go in there week one. And I mean, we have a tough. The Titans do have a tough schedule, which I think might be part of the win loss total. I think we're going to go in there and win in Chicago week one. I'm kind of hoping that we're catching Caleb Williams before he gets hot. Is kind of the way you have to treat it with a rookie quarterback. And I know we disagree on this one, but I mean, I really have confidence. I mean, we looked as I know it was the preseason, but when the starters were out there, they looked sharp. I like the new offensive system. So give me the Titans.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree that I think the 5.5 win total is probably a little low for the Titans, but we'll see what happens on Sunday at 1 p.m. It'll probably be one of the first games that show up on my TV that day. Next game, getting into it, we got Jacksonville Jaguars at the Miami Dolphins. I think this game is pretty easy to pick in my mind. Maybe not some people's mind, but I think the Dolphins are going to come out here and probably run through the Jaguars. And I don't know if there's too much else to say about that. I mean, two of the fastest receivers in the league, a quarterback that's proven he can get the ball to those receivers. Very good offensive-minded coach. Great running backs. I don't know. I think Dolphins are going to win and probably cover whatever the spread might be.
I mean, yeah, I think that's the easy answer. We got two Florida teams playing each other. Jags picked up Gabe Davis, but they did lose Calvin Ridley. Um, Jags picked up the one receiver I know you've been talking about.
Yeah, Brian Thomas.
Yeah, Brian Thomas. They still got ETN. They still got Trevor Lawrence. I mean, I'm a kind of a little bit of a Trevor Lawrence hater, to be honest. I don't think he's all that good in the NFL without putting a ton of really good talent around him, which I mean we saw in his college career. Um, I think the obvious answer probably is the Dolphins. I mean, they just got too much talent. I think that's the easiest way to put that. Which leads us to then the Broncos and Seahawks. Um, this is kind of another interesting matchup. Broncos have now named Bo Nix as their starting quarterback. I believe Geno Smith is still the starter in Seattle. I mean,
Yeah.
there's not a whole lot to both these teams in my opinion. Um, I think for the most part, it seems like both rosters are pretty young. If I was to bet on this game, I think you'd probably have to go. I think the Seahawks at home, just for the fact that Geno's been there, done that. I wanted to pick the Denver Broncos and Bo Nix as the rookie, but I just don't know if he's ready for all that to go win on the road in this league, at least in week one. So I'm going to go Seattle.
Yeah, I'm going to reluctantly agree with you again here. Like I said, I don't want to pick another NFC West rival, especially not the Seahawks. But I mean, like you said, whenever it's a close one like this, going with the home team is typically not a bad choice. I don't really think the Broncos are going to be all that this year. I mean, I don't think the Seahawks are going to be all that either. But they did just get a new defensive coordinator, hopefully revamp that defense. Other than that, Kenneth Walker's still a good running back when he's healthy. DK Metcalf is still DK Metcalf. And yeah, I mean, I think the Seahawks are going to win at home. There's not much else to it besides two mediocre teams playing. I'm probably going to pick the home team.
That's fair enough.
So, getting into the next game, speaking of mediocre teams, we have the Raiders and the Chargers in Los Angeles. I mean, I think Harbaugh's a great coach. I think he's going to come in here and do his thing in LA with the Chargers and maybe potentially bring them back to relevancy. I know receivers a little bit of a question mark, and who's going to be their starting running back's a little bit of a question mark. But I mean, they loaded up to run the ball majority of the time here, and I think that's what Harbaugh might want to do. And I think against the Raiders, that's probably what he'll be able to do. Not high. I mean, Gardner Minshew's fine. Devontae Adams is obviously good. No more Josh Jacobs. They have Zamir White starting now. Other than that, I don't know. I think I'm going to take the better coach in this situation and the home team as well. So I'm going to take the Chargers.
Yeah, I'm gonna kind of drop the bomb here, and I'm going to go with Minshew mania. um, no real valid reason other than the fact that he's one of the most like energetic guys in the league, and I think the kind of mediocre team around him might kind of build off of that. He posted a hype video the other day, working out with his mullet and playing Creed in the background, and that pretty much fired me up enough. I mean, I'm by nowhere means a Raiders fan, but I mean, I think it's a better option than Aiden McConnell at this point in the season. So, I mean, I think Devontae Adams is still a very good football player, and I, I mean, there's a little, I guess you could call no longer in-state rivalry, but it used to be. So these fan bases know each other well. The Raiders actually have way more fans than the Chargers, and the Chargers kind of end up having too many opposing fans in their stadium typically. So I wouldn't be surprised if the black hole kind of took over and beat Harbaugh and welcome back to the NFL.
Good deal. So we got another one where we're picking different from each other. So we got 4 games left. Do you want to kick off the Cowboys Browns?
Yeah, unfortunately, we do have to talk about the Cowboys on this podcast. Cowboys and Browns. So the Cowboys, you got Dak Prescott back. They just gave CeeDee Lamb the most money any receivers ever received, I believe. They brought Zeke back to be their running back, which is kind of funny after he went away for a few years. And then you got Browns. You got Deshaun Watson. I think probably the obvious answer is to pick the Dallas Cowboys in this moment. They are regular season champs year in and year out. They can't win the playoffs, but wouldn't be surprised if they have another great regular season and start out 1-0.
Taking the Cowboys?
I sure am.
All right.
As much as it pains me to say, I just want to preface that, okay?
Yeah, and they could go out there and whoop up on the Browns, but I've seen, and maybe I'm still scarred from it, but I've seen this Browns defense at home wreck house before against my 49ers last year. They gave us our first loss of the regular season. And I don't think the Cowboys' running game is going to be nearly what it was last year. And they also lost Michael Gallup, who, believe it or not, was an actually pretty decent number 2 receiver. So now they got CeeDee Lamb, and for now that's about it. I'm sure, I mean, Jake Ferguson is a good tight end, but I don't know really what else they have, and I don't think Dak is all too happy in Dallas right now. Probably going to come down to which version of Deshaun Watson shows up this year. Is it going to be the Deshaun Watson from Houston that was a really, really good quarterback, or is it going to be the Deshaun Watson that not a lot of people like to talk about for obvious reasons? I think I'm going to ride with Cleveland and Myles Garrett and their defense, not only because I hate the Cowboys, but because that defense is pretty legit.
It is. It really is. I mean, I just take into account for, honestly, CD sometimes feels like he is equivalent to 2 or 3 receivers good is how it kind of feels like sometimes. So
I agree.
that's another one we disagree on, which
brings us up to 5.
That gets us into the next game, which we got the Washington Commanders versus the Tampa Bay Bucks. This game's in Tampa Bay. The This one, I think, is actually a sneaky good game this week. You got Jaden Daniels starting for the Washington Commanders, which I think he's a very talented quarterback, rookie. And
I
then you
agree.
have in Tampa Bay, you still have Mike Evans and Baker Mayfield, which Baker Mayfield revived his career last year, which was kind of cool to see. Um, Other than that, I mean, I know the Commanders are expected to have a pretty good defense from what I hear, but I think the Bucks at home are probably going to be too good. As much as I want to pick Jaden Daniels, the talented, like I really think he's going to make them relevant. They got Dan Quinn as their coach now, which is kind of a good piece for them. But I'm gonna have to go with the Tampa Bay Bucks at home.
Alrighty. Maybe for the sake of disagreeing, maybe not, but pretty much everything you said about the Commanders, I agree with. I think that Jaden Daniels is really talented. They just brought in Austin Eckler, who can hopefully revive his career. I think that Terry McLaurin might be in for a sneaky good year after a couple of disappointing seasons. Um, New head coach, like you said. I know it's on the road. I know it's in Tampa Bay, where it's probably going to be hotter than all get out. And Baker Mayfield is still a good quarterback. He did revive his career. Rachaad White, still a good running back. Got him on a couple of my fantasy teams. Mike Evans, Mr. Consistent, probably going to get 1,000 yards again this season, as he's done just about, if not every season that he's been in the league. But I don't know. No more Dave Canellis in Tampa Bay. I'm interested to see how that looks, how their new offense looks. I'm going to rock with Washington. Not really for any super specific reason, but yeah, I guess go
I mean, no,
Commanders.
that's a fair pick. I mean, I really wanted to pick Washington. I really did. It's just we don't know anything really about them yet.
I agree. All right, so next game, Rams versus Lions. I know I've said this so many times. I don't like picking NFC West teams to win just because I'm a 49ers fan. The Rams are probably the better team on paper here between Puka, Kupp, Kyren Williams, their new backup Blake Corum, a healthy Matt Stafford for now. We'll see how he holds up this entire season.
Right.
But I will acknowledge they are probably the better team on paper, but I think I'd be doing myself a disservice if I chose every single NFC West team to win this week. As much as I personally believe that the Dan Campbell Lions may have been a one-year catch lightning in a bottle, I don't know. Part of me wants to believe that, but part of me is also really high on Amon-Ra St. Brown, really high on Jahmyr Gibbs. David Montgomery can still get it done. That offensive line is no joke. Probably the best in the league now without Jason Kelce at the Eagles. But yeah, I don't know. I'm torn on this one because I don't necessarily love either one of the teams, but I think I'm going to go with Detroit. So give me the Lions.
Yeah, I think that's a good pick. I think, to an extent, I think the Lions were probably in over their heads last season. I think they really needed to win when they were hot, and finish the job. However, I think Dan Campbell's a great coach. I think they're probably going to be in the thick of it this year. I don't think they're going to be bad by any means. I think they will probably make the playoffs. They're in an interesting division with some young, talented quarterbacks. And do we know, is this Matthew Stafford's return to Detroit? Has this happened before?
Did he play in the – where did they play out in the playoffs last year? Because I know they played each other,
Um,
but I'm not sure. Well, the Lions were definitely a higher seed than the Rams, right?
so was his return in the playoffs?
So his return must have been in the playoffs where the
I
Lions
think I
knocked
do
him out.
remember that now.
Yeah.
Okay, so I take that back. This is not his first return, but it's his second return, or at least his second return.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, I think the Lions are just simply. I think I disagree with the comment of the Rams being the better on paper. I think the Lions really are. I mean, they went to the NFC Championship last year. Um, whether that be a fluke or not, I think they're going to run with the same style. And if teams don't figure it out, they're going to have a lot of success again. So give me the Lions.
Sounds good.
Which
All right.
leads us to the last game of the slate, and I'll talk about the Jets here and leave you time to talk about the Niners. The New York Jets had an awful, awful, awful season last year after Aaron Rodgers got hurt on play like 3 or 4 to start the year. His highlight of the year was carrying the American flag on the field, and that was played over and over and over because that's about all he did last year due to an injury. He's an older quarterback coming off an Achilles. We don't really know how he's going to respond to that. He's got plenty of weapons around him, and I think they're going to have a pretty solid year. A lot of people are picking them to not only compete in their division, but in the playoffs. I've seen pretty much everyone picking them to be a playoff team. And then you can talk about your Niners here.
Good deal. Yeah, I mean, like you said, terrible year for the Jets last year. Not because of the lack of the weapons, but because of the lack of a quarterback after 3 or 4 plays. I mean, Brees Hall is poised to have a career season. I know that he's definitely one of the highest touted fantasy running backs this year. Garrett Wilson, good, great, if not great receiver, just never has quite had someone to get him the ball. And their defense is good. I remember their defense giving Patrick Mahomes a real fit last year, even though the Chiefs ended up squeaking by. What's funny, not funny, I don't want to make jokes at anybody's injury, but that was on Monday Night Football, first game of the season last year, too. A little ironic. Not funny,
Uh-oh.
ironic. But with that being said, the Super Bowl run starts today for the starts Monday, September 9th for the San Francisco 49ers. Might have taken longer than I wanted to, but we brought back everybody. We brought back Ayuk. We brought back Trent Williams as of today when we're recording this. McCaffrey should be good to go come Monday night. I'm sure that having a Hall of Fame left tackle coming back maybe gives him a little bit more of an incentive to be good to go come Monday night. But, I mean, year through with Brock Purdy, hasn't disappointed yet. Hasn't disappointed too much yet. I think that, just the start of another year, and the better team's going to win this game. Give me the 49ers on Monday Night Football. Go Niners.
Yeah. I think the obvious pick is the Niners here. Well, I wouldn't say the obvious pick, but that's the pick I'm going with. Christian McCaffrey's on my fantasy team. I hope he runs for 1,000,000 yards on Monday night. The New York Jets, I think honestly this would be a more interesting game if it was in New York. So I'm sure they would have a packed stadium to watch Aaron Rodgers and the boys play, but that is not the case. They're traveling all the way across the country. But yeah, give me the Niners in that one.
Good.
So that's all the games on the slate. How many did we disagree on?
6. We disagreed on Ravens, Chiefs. I had Ravens, you had Chiefs. Steelers, Falcons. I had Steelers, you had Falcons. Bears, Titans. I had Bears, you had your Titans. Chargers, Raiders. I had the Chargers. You had Minshew Mania and the Raiders. Dallas, Cleveland. I had the Browns. You had the Cowgirls. And finally, the final one we disagreed on was Washington and Tampa Bay. So
All right.
we'll have to tally it all up next week. Hey, hopefully if we both go perfect on what we agreed on, then we're looking pretty good.
Yeah, so there's 16 games? So
Yeah, I believe so.
agreed on 10, disagreed on 6. I might have to both put a 16-leg parlay each on our decisions and see how that pays out.
We'll have to see. Yeah, one of them.
But yeah, I think that's a great we got a great slate of games for week 1. The NFL's back. I'm excited. other than that, I think that's all for today's episode. Make sure to follow us on all of our social medias. You can go to our website to go to any of them at tristarsports.com. Other than that, we'll see y'all next week, and everybody enjoy their weekend.
Have a good one.